Now, I don't know if you caught this, but Donald Trump just hosted the Turkish president at the White House. And for once, Trump wasn't the one causing controversy.
There was mayhem outside the Turkish embassy in Washington during a visit by President Erdogan when his bodyguards attacked a group of protesters.
New pictures show President Recep Tayyip Erdogan watching on after his meeting with President Donald Trump. Protesters are beaten and kicked by men in suits. Washington police called it a brutal attack on peaceful protesters.
A visiting leader's bodyguards beat up local peaceful protesters. That is insane. Then again, what's the point of having diplomatic immunity if you're not prepared to use it? Sounds like it's time for another instalment of The World's Strongest Man. Turkey, home of the famous dessert known locally as regular delight, has been ruled by Erdogan for the past 14 years.
Recep Tayyip Erdogan, his country's most powerful leader since Ataturk himself.
Under his rule, the country has become a regional powerhouse. Erdogan was Prime Minister for over a decade. He then became Turkey's first directly elected president in 2014.
The fact that he built himself a 1,000-room palace didn't calm concerns that he's got plans for long-term rule.
A 1,000-room palace. To put that in perspective, it cost almost as much as a studio apartment in Sydney. Now, to be fair, the palace wasn't built for the president.
It was originally planned as a palace for the Prime Minister, but once Erdogan stepped down as Prime Minister and was voted in as President, the plans changed.
Aww, it's always so cute when a baby dictator builds his first 1,000-room palace. Isn't he adorable? In a kid from The Shining sort of way. Erdogan may be tough, but he's also surprisingly thin-skinned. Like the time he had a high school student arrested for reading a poem that hurt his feelings, and the time he demanded Germany prosecute a comedian for broadcasting a poem that hurt his feelings, and the time he had a former Miss Turkey convicted for sharing a poem online that hurt his feelings. It's like that old Turkish saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but I'm not going to rhyme this because the president hates poetry. And he's not just upset about poems.
The Turkish government has blocked access to the popular online information site Wikipedia in what's seen as another crackdown on freedom of speech and citizens' rights.
It's bad for democracy and even worse for Turkish teenagers with an assignment due tomorrow. Erdogan just won a referendum that will mean big changes for Turkey.
There have been scenes of jubilation and anger across Turkey following a key referendum vote which will give President Erdogan extraordinary powers.
Ooh, extraordinary powers. What are they? X-ray vision? Flight? Webby hands?
Voters agreed to scrap the role of Prime Minister and let the President directly appoint public officials, including ministers, intervene in the judiciary and decide when to impose a state of emergency.
Opposition parties are contesting the validity of the result, which could see the controversial leader in power until 2029.
2029? Could you imagine a democracy ruled by a head of state for decades with almost no accountability? Erdogan may be the first democratically elected leader to ask for permission to become a dictator, but that doesn't mean the campaign was polite. When Erdogan's supporters were banned from campaigning in the Netherlands, nationalist sentiment in Turkey ran high.
Turkey's Red Meat Association has ordered a number of prize-winning Dutch cattle to be returned to the Netherlands, claiming the association no longer wants to farm the cows due to the growing diplomatic crisis between the countries.
They could have been a delicious kebab, but now they'll have to suffer the indignity of being whatever Dutch people eat. I'm going to say a kind of sausage. Is it a sausage? It's a sausage. But if you think he's harsh with Dutch cows, you should see how Erdogan treats Turkish people.
Turkey's strongman and the cabinet have extended a state of emergency put in place after a failed coup attempt last year.
After last year's attempted military coup, more than 100,000 people were detained, half of them charged, including more than 100 journalists.
The arrests began en masse. The government had lists of thousands of suspected traitors. It wasted no time locking them up.
Turkey now imprisons more journalists than anywhere else in the world, and a journalist should never be imprisoned for doing their job.
I just don't know what to do with myself.
A journalist should almost never be imprisoned for doing their job. It seems like Turkey is sliding from democratic to democrat-ish. But if I know Erdogan, and I think I do, I have a foolproof plan to stop his power grab going any further. Poems couldn't stop him, Wikipedia couldn't stop him, but a poem on his Wikipedia page, well, that is a different story. There once was a Turk named Erdogan, a bad guy if ever I heard of one. His skin ain't so thick and he's kind of a prick, but a leader, he ain't even a third of one. Yeah. Now, in case you're wondering, we really did add that poem to Erdogan's Wikipedia page, and it stayed there for a full 1 second before it got taken down. Oh well, to make me feel better, how about a little regular delight?